Welcome to Million Voices. As many of you know, over 30 million born again evangelicals don't vote. Often they don't pray or get involved. And our heart with Million Voices is to change that. Today, our guest is a good friend of mine, Alan West. He's not just a lieutenant colonel, a father, a husband, a consultant, a warrior, but he's also the new chairman of the Texas GOP. Alan, welcome to our show today.
Good to be with you, John. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for making the time. I know you're very, very busy. I want to get straight to the point. Give me a little background. You're not just a first generation military person, are you, Alan? Talk to me a little bit about that.
No, I'm not. I'm the third of four generations in our family, dating all the way back to World War II. My father served there as United States Army Corporal in the European Theater of Operations. My older brother was a Marine Corps infantryman in Vietnam. At the age of 15, my dad challenged me to be the first officer in the family. And so on 31 July 1982, I was commissioned as a second lieutenant at the University of Tennessee. I served 22 years active duty service, Operation Desert Shield, Desert Storm, Iraq, and also in Afghanistan as an advisor to the Afghan National Army. But now my dad's grandson, my older brother's son, my nephew, is serving as a major in the United States Army. And a couple of months ago, he came out on the lieutenant colonel's list, and we're proud of him.
Awesome.
That service. He's been deployed 3 times into combat.
Amazing. So now let's shift gears from your military background. You continued your service after you served the country in a combat zone and with the United States military. But now you're serving the country. You were U.S. Congressman. You moved to Texas. When you and I first met, I was very taken by not just your integrity, the spine that you had, but the genuine humility I saw in you, Alan, and in your willingness to try to actually do something different in our state of Texas. And I was proud to help you in that. Will you tell me why Texas is so critical for the future of this nation and not just this state?
Well, back in October of 2018, I wrote a book called Hold Texas, Hold the Nation, Victory or Death, because Texas, what a great lead in.
I didn't even think about us talking about that, but it happens to be on my desk today.
Well, Texas is without a doubt the linchpin for the United States of America. When you think of Texas, it's the 10th largest economy in the world. Texas is the reason why the United States of America is energy independent and a net exporter of energy resources. The world's largest military installation is in Texas. I served there, Fort Hood, Texas. So we're not even on the East Coast or West Coast grid. Texas is on its own electrical grid. So Texas is so important for the United States of America, and that's why you see so many of the progressive socialist left talking about turning Texas blue, taking Texas, because they know that's the key if they ever want to dominate national electoral politics, is to take Texas.
And what's critical that almost no one's talking about as we approach this close to the presidential election is redistricting. Every 10 years, there's a census that comes out, and redistricting. There's 7 or 8 congressional House seats in Texas, but a lot of experts think there's a 60 plus 65% chance that the Republicans lose the House, the state House, which decides that redistricting and could swing 15 or more congressional seats. Talk to us about what you're doing there, why that's so critical, and how we can address that issue, if you will.
Well, let me go back to 2018 and set that up. In 2018, the Republican Party of Texas lost 12 state House seats. So now we're in the position where the Democrats, the left, they only need 9 to take over the Texas State House. And you're absolutely correct. One of the critical linchpins to that is that every 10 years you have the census according to the Constitution. And when you think about the incredible growth of population that has come here to Texas over these past 10 years, Texas is going to pick up 2 new congressional districts. And it's so important that we make sure we maintain the Texas State House in Republican control, because if the Democrats get it, and even if you maintain the Texas State Senate, if those 2 houses cannot agree, then the redistricting goes to the courts. And what happened in 2018? 56 judicial positions were lost to the Democrat Party in 2018. So, you have a possibility, and as well, we've got 4 state Supreme Court justices up for this election cycle in 2020. So we've got to maintain and hold on to the Texas State House. We're doing a lot of work, especially up here in North Texas, where I live, to make sure that we protect those seats and even win back some of those 12 that we lost. But we've got to make sure we start winning back those judicial races, and we got to protect the Texas State Supreme Court and also the 3 judges that are up in the criminal courts of appeal.
And with Million Voices, obviously we're a 501c3. We don't endorse or oppose parties or candidates, but a lot of people are very frustrated by both parties. Matter of fact, it's a growing group of people. And one of the things I was drawn to by you, because I have my frustrations with a lot of people in the Republican Party that give nothing but lip service to believers, Christians, minorities, African Americans, our Latinos, who I happen to be married to one. And so talk to me about your heart and your plan to do something to reach faith voters in Texas and minorities. What are you doing in that area?
You just got to show up. This past Sunday, I was down at Cornerstone Church, Pastor Hagee's church, and we talked about voting your faith, and we talked about what liberty really means as a Christian. A couple of weeks ago, I was at Denton Bible Church with Pastor Tommy Nelson, once again, talk about voting your faith and voting your values. So it's just about getting out there into the communities. And my first trip as the chairman of the Republican Party of Texas was down into the Rio Grande Valley to show that we do want to link in with a community that is conservative in nature. When you think about faith voters, you know, the Black community, Hispanic community are strong faith voters. And even 2 weekends ago down in Houston, I was invited to attend a Vietnamese community rally for President Trump, over 600 people. And the thing is that they understand what socialism, Marxism, and communism is. They understand that rhetoric. They understand the breakdown of the rule of law and the rule of the mob as it rises up, and they see it on our streets. And they don't want to lose the United States of America like they lost their own home country of Vietnam. So I think, John, the most important thing is we just need to show up. You know, that's why I say I hate the word outreach, because it has no meaning whatsoever. You've got to have engagement. You've got to be there 24/7, 365. And what we're going to do in the Republican Party of Texas, we're not just going to ramp up for an election and then ramp down. We're going to continue to have a steady state of engagement and policy inclusiveness with our communities all across the state of Texas.
You know what's fascinating to me is I was very involved in the battle in Texas in 2017 about men being in women's bathrooms, boys being in girl showers at school. And the African American Latino community, over 70% of them did not want that issue. It was the white liberals who were pushing that issue. And we see that over and over and over, where it's not even a party issue, it's more about the issues, but I don't see a lot of people speaking to those things. So let me shift gears a little bit here. You were recently in a really wonderful documentary called Uncle Tom. Tell us a little bit about what that documentary is, what was at stake there, and what was your experience with that documentary?
Well, the documentary is called Uncle Tom, and the underline is the oral history of Black conservatism, because so many people tend to believe that this thing called conservatism in the Black community is new. It is not. When you talk about Judeo-Christian faith heritage, strong family, individual responsibility and accountability, quality education, small business entrepreneurship, and our free market system and service to the nation, all of those stories come together from different Black voices, conservative voices in that documentary. And you get to finally see and understand the real narrative, the real truth, not the truth that you see out there in the streets with Black Lives Matter or Kamala Harris or Joe Biden or whomever. But you get to understand that this is a community that was, you know, without a doubt, you know, aligned with those conservative principles, but yet when you destroyed the family, when you took away good quality education opportunities in our inner urban centers, when you eroded economic opportunities in small business entrepreneurship, you took a community that was about raising up people to be victors, even in some of the worst situations, and you made them victims. So that's what this whole documentary is about, to show people that truth and get them to know that the real purveyors of systemic racism throughout the history of the United States of America, it has not been the Republican Party, for which I am the chairman here in Texas, and also the Republican Party of Texas was founded on Independence Day of 1867, 150 Black men.
Yeah. It's most people don't know that history. They don't know basic history of that. And what I've always seen is there is some. I don't think it's systemic. Racism in this country, and people will be mad for me even saying that. There is racism, and there has been a history of that, especially against Black Americans. But what I see with Black conservatives, Black Christians who dare to go against the kind of leftist narrative is what I call double discrimination.
Big time.
Of there's some of this going on here, but how dare you? How dare you? You're now, which was what was dealt with in this documentary. Give me an example or a couple examples in your own life of how this kind of dichotomy, double discrimination, or in your experience, has it been worse? The radical venom you get from the left for being a Black to be conservative, or have you experienced them both equally?
No, of course. I think that all I have to do is go to the recent comments from the Democratic presidential nominee, Joe Biden, when he asserted that if you're confused about who you're voting for, him or Donald Trump, then you ain't Black. Or if you look at the responses to some of the incredible speakers that you saw during the Republican National Convention, the young Attorney General for Kentucky, Burgess Owens, Alice Johnson, who was a benefactor of the criminal justice reform. And what did you hear from the left? And to include Black leftists, they were called tokens, they were called minstrels, they were called Uncle Tom, and things of that nature. So, there is a real sincere concern by the progressive socialist left. If they start to lose that voting base that has always been wedded to them, if you just get anything north of 10%, they're done.
Yeah, it's fascinating because I had a long conversation with John James, who's a Black Senate candidate up in Michigan, who I think has an incredible chance to shock a lot of people. But I had a long conversation actually right during the RNC with Vernon Jones, who is a Black Democrat out of Georgia. And is he really? Okay.
I know.
Okay. You know him. Okay. I'd never met the man. Somebody set up a Zoom call. We started talking, and we'll probably have him on a podcast too. And it was pretty fascinating because he didn't pull punches on either side. He's kind of like you. He just shoots it straight. And I really think there's almost an overreach to create by the radical leftists this narrative. And a lot of people are starting to ask questions. They're starting to ask. So talk to me. What was the highlight of? I'll tell you what my highlight was of the documentary. But what was your highlight of the whole documentary and the whole experience being interviewed for that?
Well, I will tell you that I remember when Justin Malone came to my door, and I was kind of thinking, who is this guy for real, or is he, sneaky little leftist trying to come in? But a great young man, and what he has done is fantastic. But my favorite part in the documentary, and I call it the over the rainbow moment, because the documentary is in black and white.
Yeah.
Except one portion of that documentary, it goes back and shows the glory days of the Black family. It shows mothers and fathers together with their children. And that's what I remember growing up in the inner city of Atlanta, Georgia, in the same neighborhood that produced Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. All of us had mommies and daddies. But now you look at what has happened in the community, that's not there anymore. You have decimated that traditional nuclear family. And the other thing that that movie brings out, Margaret Sanger and Planned Parenthood, and what it has done when you have 20+ million Black babies that have been murdered in the womb since 1973 that no one's talking about. I hear these Black Lives Matter people running around, but the question we should be asking is which Black Lives Matter? Because Black lives that have been lost to the abortion industry, no one cares about them.
And no one wants to know that 80% of all Planned Parenthood in this nation are within walking distance of African-American communities. They were founded to target disproportionately that community. They've hurt disproportionately that community. And people get upset. I've talked to many pastors, and pastors are literally resigning and stepping down because they don't know how to address this. If you say Black Lives Matter, you offend people. If you say all lives matter, you offend people. If you don't say anything, you offend people. And I believe it's kind of a sliding scale. I think the organization itself clearly is founded by trained Marxists who want to destroy the nuclear family. And to me, that's one of the most telling things is of everyone's against racism. I don't know anybody who's for racism except the radical kind of white supremacist or the Black Panther BLM Antifa movement. They literally are attacking what I think is the foundational issue. Talk to us about that, about fathers in the home, about what the effects of that are, what is not just your experience, but what have you seen across the board in your work?
Well, think about what I said. I mean, here I am, a 15-year-old young man, and my dad sits me down on the steps of his house that he owned and on Kennesaw Avenue in Atlanta, Georgia. And a corporal of the United States Army, World War II veteran, looks at me and says, there's no greater honor than to wear the uniform of the United States of America. And he challenges me, his middle son, to be the first officer in the family. See, when you don't have that strong role model figure in the home, when you don't have that guiding light, then look at all of the devastating effects in our inner city communities. Look at the gangs, look at the murders, look at the irresponsibility, the young men out there just, making babies all over the place and not standing up and really being men because they don't know what manhood, righteous manhood looks like. I got to see that, not just in my home. I got to see it when I went to church. I got to see it when I went to high school and the junior ROTC instructors that I had there. I was constantly bombarded and reminded of that. And so it's kind of like Proverbs 22:6. When you train up a child in the way that they should go, when they grow old, they shall not depart from it. But when you take out that factor, and this is not saying, John, that a woman cannot be successful by herself as a single mom, but it's just even more, it's difficult
Yeah.
because you don't have that balancing effect. And that's what God intended. That's what God intended when he sanctioned marriage and he sanctioned the family. But what do we have now? We have this culture war, which is trying to redefine, reimagine the family. Remember that ABC show, Modern Family? Well, culture, politics flows downstream of the culture. And so that's what we see the left doing.
Yeah, that's a famous quote from Chuck Colson that the politics is downstream from the culture. And I would add to it, the culture is downstream from the church. And the church is where the family is built. It's where it originated. It's where it's created. And I don't think it's a mistake. Most people that are upset with the BLM movement are upset that they're trained Marxists, but not as many people are talking about what I think is a bigger problem, which is they're trying to destroy the nuclear family. They're trying to destroy a man and a woman. And so I want to talk to you one last thing, and then I know you're busy. I'm going to let you go. How does someone order this book? Do you have a website they can go to? They get it on Amazon? Talk to me about that, because I know some of the people are going to want to look at this.
Yeah, you get it on Amazon.com. And then also, I released a book earlier this year in Black History Month, February, that's called We Can Overcome, which is where I look at that history of conservatism in the Black community, starting all the way back with Crispus Attucks before the Revolutionary War, all the way up to today. And we talk about some of the issues that you and I just mentioned, of course, what you see in the documentary.
Now, tell me the name of that book again, because we're going to try to put this link on there. What was it?
We Can Overcome, an American Black Conservative Manifesto.
All right. And then the last two questions. Number one, President Trump might be the most controversial, polarizing president, at least in our lifetimes. How do you think he has served the Black community specifically in your understanding?
I will go back to 2016 in Charlotte, North Carolina, when he said in a rally to the Black community, "What have you got to lose?" He was absolutely right. He is the very first Republican president that stood up and took that position, and he showed that he cared, and he backed it up with the policies, support to historical Black colleges and universities, criminal justice reform, education opportunity zones, economic opportunity zones. And then, of course, we've seen the lowest unemployment rate that the Black community has ever seen since they've been tracking that number. So he backed it up. And that's why I think that he will get anywhere from 15 to 20% electoral support nationally from the Black community. Some people say that's nothing. That's huge to the Democrat Party.
Yeah, that would change the whole race. There's no question about it. And then one of the last question we ask our viewers, because my heart is to find the disengaged believers, the people who have just, I'm too busy. My vote doesn't matter. I'm tired of holding my nose and picking the lesser candidates. Politics, we're supposed to be separate from the church and politics. My heart and my passion is that these people who've been silent would speak up. What would you, if you were talking to that audience, if you were talking to believers who just kind of half the time vote or never vote, have given up on the whole process. They tried it and they put a little bit of hope in a candidate and that person let them down. What would you say to them about not just their vote, but their engagement and their involvement?
Well, first and foremost, separation of church and state does not mean you separate the Judeo-Christian faith heritage from this nation or from yourself. This nation is unique in that it was founded upon the premise that our inalienable rights come from a creator God. And if you continue to allow the secular humanists to drive the creator God out of the marketplace, then who will be the grantor of your inalienable rights? That's first and foremost. Your very first liberty is your freedom of religion and the free exercise thereof. Who would have ever thought on an Easter Sunday in the United States of America, the churches, their doors would be closed, but yet Walmart, Home Depot, and marijuana stores, liquor stores, their doors were open. That's because you have people in government that are making a decision that violates your very first right and your very first liberty. As a Christian, you are God's voice here on this incredible earth, in this incredible country we call America. When you do not go out and vote, you suppress God's voice. You make sure that you don't have righteous governance. You make sure that you have unrighteous governance. And that's the important thing. And that's why we cannot have 30 million Christians decided they're going to dial it in. God did not call us to be wimps, whiners, and wussies. He called us to be strong and of good courage.
That's awesome. Proverbs 29:2, when the righteous rule, people can rejoice. You can't have spiritual awakening without that. When the wicked rule, people groan. They're miserable. And I think that's unfortunately a big part of this country. Alan, thank you so much. I want to thank all our viewers today. We're going to have Alan back, God willing, and in God's timing. But I want to encourage you, please vote this year. Please get your friends that don't vote engaged. Share this, like it on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, but share it with some of your friends. Get this word out. Thank you so much, and God bless.